In order to suggest another way, I'm going to show you a demo that I call the 75-25 rule. And that's because my experience has been, over the many years, that when I show you this demo, 75% of you think, oh yeah, I've known that since the 3rd grade. That's obvious. And 25% of you have a mind-altering experience. Just, whoa, whoa. Now here's the thing. You should have had this experience in the 3rd grade. So when I do this demo, regardless of which group you're in, act bored. Okay? Act bored. Now, I have 2 identical cubes. They're both exactly the same size. They're both painted black. They're identical, are they not? Are they?
No.
No! Okay, she says I'm lying. Who are you going to believe, me or her?
Me.
Okay, one of them is made out of steel, and one of them is made out of aluminum. One is a lot heavier than the other. Now, I'm going to take these 2 cubes and I'm going to lower them into this colored water. And the question is, in which beaker is the water going to be displaced the most? In which beaker is the water going to go up the most? Now, folks, during this demo, do not make eye contact with Nimrod. Do not look at Nimrod. Pretend you're bored. They go up the same. Of course they do. I knew that. I knew that. Because where the block is now, water used to be, and it had to go somewhere else. Has absolutely nothing to do with how heavy they are. Has everything to do with how much space they take up. The volume of the object. And this gives us a second way to measure volume. If I submerge an object in a liquid like water, the volume of the object is displacing liquid. It will be equal to the volume of the displaced liquid. And by displaced we mean moved up. Now this is a principle that was not always fully appreciated. It took a very, very brilliant man, Archimedes, to come up with this idea. I didn't learn it from Archimedes. I'm not that old. I learned it from my grandmother, one of the smartest people on the planet. She never went to college, but she could make a mean apple pie. And I lived in her basement for a while, and I said, Grandma, teach me how to make an apple pie. I want to be able to make an apple pie like you make it. And so she taught me that the key is the crust. If you can make a nice flaky crust, you are going to find yourself a wife. Man, listen to what I'm saying here, okay? Now, the key to a nice flaky crust is getting just the right amount of Crisco. My grandma said, get me a cup of Crisco. So I got a measuring cup and I started scooping Crisco. You know what Crisco is. It's just that's lard. Okay. I started scooping Crisco into the measuring cup, and I was having a hard time because there's air pockets, and you're kind of pushing it in to make sure you get all the air pockets out. And my grandma actually laughed at me. It's the only time she ever ridiculed me. She's a wonderful woman. And she said, Greg, that's not how you do it. And she filled up this measuring bowl about halfway, and she started throwing in Crisco until the water level went up 1 cup. And I said, Eureka. Eureka. Okay? Now, the first person to come up with it, oh, and I can make a pie. That's a pie I made. Okay. Oh, I figured out who the geeks are. Yeah, you saw it, didn't you? Okay. Yeah, okay. Geeks in the room. Okay. This is a story of hero of Syracuse, the king, and Archimedes. You've heard it before, but I'll read it to you again. It's story time. So hero of Syracuse wanted to make a beautiful golden crown to the gods and put it in the temple. He measured out a certain mass of gold, gave it to the artist, and said, make me the most beautiful crown ever made. The artist returned a while later with a beautiful crown. It had exactly the same mass as the lump of gold. But Hero was worried. He suspected that maybe he had been cheated by this artist. Why? Because he was an artist. And he suspected that the artist had slipped in some silver and kept the gold. So he called in the local smart guy, Archimedes, and he gave him the job of figuring out whether the crown was pure gold. As the story goes, Archimedes was pondering on this. He went down to the bathhouse, and as he lowered his considerable self into the tub, water splashed out onto the floor. Suddenly he had this brainstorm. As the story goes, he leapt out of the tub, ran naked through the streets of Greece, which is not really that uncommon, and he was yelling, "Eureka, Eureka." So he goes back to the king, and he does the following test. He takes a lump of gold that's the same mass as the crown, a lump of silver that's the same mass as the crown. He first of all places the silver lump into a bucket of water and measures carefully how much water spills out. He does the same with the lump of gold, and finally with the crown. How does this story end? Anyone know? The artist dies. Yeah, he cheated the king. He lost his head. Okay, let that be a lesson to you. Don't go into art.